So Theresa May did manage to get the backing of her cabinet. She got that draft through cabinet, but it didn't get an easy ride, did it?
Good morning, Belle. Well, it's been a dramatic 24 hours, and I think the next 24 are going to be worth sticking around for, because it was a hard battle to get it through cabinet yesterday. The cabinet meeting was meant to last 3 hours. It went on to 5 hours, and it was tougher than thought to get agreement around that cabinet table. Now, we hear that as many as 9 ministers expressed reservations, including Dominic Raab, the Brexit Secretary himself, Andrea Leadsom, the leader of the Commons, Michael Gove, and also Jeremy Hunt, the Foreign Secretary. So not just the Brexiteers, some of the Remainers as well that are in the cabinet also expressing their doubts. And we are still very much on watch for people resigning from the government. Last night, Esther McVey, someone I mentioned through the day, she is the Work and Pensions Secretary. She was the one most tipped to resign. She is a strong Brexiteer. Also, though, in some hot water on a domestic policy called universal credit, so she could use her leaving in protest as a good time to jump ship from that. But she apparently had to be shouted down twice after demanding that the cabinet actually took a full, proper vote. That was not the way that they wanted to do it. So now she and others will be waking up this morning and deciding whether or not they are going to resign over this. And I think you've got to remember two things here. They're going to be judged by the front pages of the newspapers. Whatever they do, they are waking up this morning and seeing the Daily Express, quite a Brexit-supporting paper, saying it's my deal or no Brexit. The Times saying May papers over the cracks. The Sun, we're in the a word I can't say at this time in the morning. And then the Daily Mail saying, I stand to fight. All of these papers are really sticking with the Prime Minister. The Mail and the Express are two very influential papers on the right of the political spectrum in the UK. They have switched from, in the referendum times, being very hard Brexit, being a critic of David Cameron, to now getting to a softer side. They've both changed editors. And I think those politicians thinking about quitting, Andrea Leadsom, Esther McVey, as I mentioned, possibly even Dominic Raab, the Brexit Secretary himself, they will know that Theresa May at the moment seems to have the British press on her side, and they will face, in the interim, harsh criticism from those papers. But also, this is a moment in history. This was the biggest decision a cabinet has made in the UK for decades. There's been comparisons to the Suez crisis as such a moment in British political history, and those that jump ship know that they will also be faced by the judgment of that history in future. So it's a tough decision for them overnight, and I think, though, we will get one or two of them by the end of the day who aren't going to be going home in government cars because they have resigned.
Well, as you say, Vincent, so many things in the balance at the moment, the first of which, in the immediate future, as you mentioned, Theresa May's leadership, reports of letters of no confidence being sent, perhaps. What do you think is going to happen over the next, I mean, let's say few hours, because it's not even a few days, it's a few hours?
It really is the next couple of hours. This is going to be the biggest moment in Theresa May's political life so far, because it could be really the end game. We've known for some time that a significant number of letters of no confidence have been submitted to Graham Brady, who's the chairman of the 1922 committee that controls the Conservative Party. Now, if they get 48 letters of no confidence, that triggers automatically a leadership election within the Conservative Party. We think the number is sitting around the 40 mark. There is speculation that Graham Brady's actually had more letters than the threshold, but has just been sitting on them, knowing that this is such a critical moment for the country. But we expect that more letters will be going in, and that 48 threshold will be passed. There doesn't seem to be a kind of direct policy by the ERG, the European Research Group, which is the hardcore Brexiteers, of trying to take her down. But the sounds that we're getting out of its leaders, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who must be the quickest speed reader in the country, because he, within minutes of the 585-page deal being published online, had written a full letter to the Prime Minister outlining why he couldn't support it. There is a danger today that if enough letters go in of MPs' own accord, Theresa May will also be fighting for her leadership, fighting to stay at number 10 and try to deliver this deal. The only thing for her, though, is that there doesn't seem to be a sort of rival candidate at the moment that could wield enough votes. Around 150 would be needed to try to replace her. There is no one that commands that kind of support clearly at the moment. There will be lots of runners and riders, outsiders, but no one, it seems, with enough momentum to take Theresa May out of number 10. And if she does survive a vote of no confidence, they're not actually allowed to do that again for another full year. So it would actually give Theresa May breathing room to try to get this deal in place. But yes, her job is now very much on the line.
And if Theresa May does manage to stay as leader of the country, she still has to get this deal through Parliament. And in that case, the arithmetic's not looking great there, is it, Vincent?
It really isn't. Theresa May has to come here to the House of Commons in a couple of hours and give a statement. MPs were very unhappy yesterday that she was going to give a press conference after those words outside of number 10 Downing Street before coming here to talk to MPs. They said the point of this was to get power back into the House of Commons and she should be speaking there. So Theresa May will have to come here. She's going to have to give quite the speech to get her MPs on side, because at the moment, if you look at her own side, the Conservative Party, the hard Brexiteers, which may number as many as 50, do not like this deal. They have been speed reading it through the night. They've been sounding off on Twitter and on TV programmes saying that this is not what was promised, this isn't Brexit, and they want the no deal scenario. Now, Theresa May threatened them last night. She, for the first time, conceded that Brexit might not happen in the words that she said outside number 10 Downing Street. That's getting a lot of pickup on the front pages this morning. Then you have the Remainers in her party. You had Heidi Allen, a backbench MP, on TV last night saying this isn't right, this isn't in the national interest. She thinks there should be a second referendum. Some quite senior Conservatives, the former Home Secretary Amber Rudd, the former Education Secretary Justine Greening, also now saying they want a second referendum. And the DUP, the Northern Irish party that Theresa May struck a deal with after losing her majority. She doesn't have a majority on her own in that place there behind me. She had to pay £1 billion in a deal with the DUP for their 10 votes. Well, Arlene Foster flew over from Belfast yesterday. She was not happy. She met the Prime Minister after the Brexit cabinet last night, and she is very unhappy with the deal whereby Northern Ireland will be in a slightly different arrangement to the rest of the UK. No borders, which were the real worries, but it still is a slightly different arrangement. I don't think the Prime Minister can count on her votes. So then, with her own side not united behind her, she has to look elsewhere. She apparently spoke on the phone last night with Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, and Nicola Sturgeon, the SNP leader up in Edinburgh. But those two parties are very hostile towards this deal. They will likely all vote it down, which means we would then be heading, which is what Jeremy Corbyn wants, to either a second referendum or, more preferably for him, a general election. That is something the Prime Minister will definitely be wanting to try to avoid. But at the moment, I can't see how she will get the maths. It will have to be some performance in the Commons. And I think if you listen to the end of May's speech, where she talks about believing in her heart and her head that this was the best thing for the country and it was the right tough decision to make, quite emotive language from Mrs May, who's accused of being a bit of a robot, the Maybot at times. I think she'll be saying to MPs here now that this is a moment where they need to put the country's interests first and laying it on thick with them, that if they don't, there could be quite a crisis next year. So, I mean, stay tuned. It is going to be quite a day here in Westminster.